Maybe giving a team a tax-free incentive to sign players may have not been a good thing. Hello guys, it's 899 here and welcome to today's video, and today we're going to be going through our tips and predictions for round 24 of the 2026 NRL season. Last week, we didn't do a predictions video last week, but we'll just do a bit of an overview of how teams have been in the last sort of fortnight as we go into now the final 4 rounds of the season. And there's some pretty interesting matchups, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting out on Thursday night, 7:50 PM, and it's probably the biggest game of the regular season. It's first versus second. It's the Penrith Panthers taking on the Sydney Roosters. The Panthers are coming off a 42-18 victory over the Canberra Raiders in Mudgee. Unfortunately, followed that up with an 18-12 loss to the Warriors in New Zealand. And the Sydney Roosters are coming off the last fortnight with making a snuff film over the North Queensland Cowboys and a very close encounter with the Canterbury Bulldogs. Now, obviously, both teams now tied on points, meaning whoever wins this game will become top of the table and possibly could take a big step in towards getting a minor premiership. This game is going to be very hyped up, obviously a very important match. Could be an early precursor to the NRL Grand Final. So usually when a game is being really hyped up, it means it's going to be a massive letdown. But this should be very interesting to see how this does play out. Roosters have been looking good. Penrith still showing signs that they can be a little bit vulnerable. It's going to be one of those hard games to predict. It's essentially, for me, a coin flip. But I'm going to say, I think the Roosters finally stake a claim as them being the top dogs proper. I think they're going to get the win here, but it'll be a close game, and hopefully it lives up to the occasion. Now we go into the Friday games where at 6 PM we have a pretty important game as well, as we've got the Manly Sea Eagles taking on the Dolphins. The Fozball honeymoon period has very much ended at Manly right now, as following a bye in round 22, they ended up in a 42-20 loss to the Storm in Perth, which has them with a 4-loss streak, which is tied with the Tigers at the moment with the worst run of form in the NRL. Whilst the Dolphins keep hitting strides as they got an away win over the Dragons in round 22, and then last week doing over their crosstown rivals in the Brisbane Broncos 40-32, essentially verifying that Brisbane will not be making the finals this year, and the Dolphins pretty much one step away from claiming a maiden finals berth. With Manly currently in 10th place with a 4-point gap between them and the top 8, which are currently the Cowboys, and the Cowboys having a bye in hand, it's pretty much Manly have to switch on for this. And in terms of said points gap, there is currently a 6-point gap for the Dolphins, which essentially, they win this game, they're through to the finals. I mean, it could be good to see a possibility of Manly coming into this game firing and trying to swap the momentum, but I think the Dolphins have just been too good at this moment. I just think they're going to run away with this, and they'll punch their ticket officially into the finals. Now we go into the 8 PM game on the Friday, and we have the Canterbury Bulldogs taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The Bulldogs are coming off a 36-22 away win against the Melbourne Storm, but earlier mentioned coming just short of beating off the Sydney Roosters. Whilst the Rabbitohs have hit a bit of a speed bump in round 22 with a 36-16 loss to Cronulla, but did bounce back against the Parramatta Eels, but almost coughed up the biggest choke of all time, but they still held on. This is another big one, 9th versus 7th with a 2-point gap between them. It's a match that both teams realistically need to win to keep their finals hopes alive. I think more so for the Bulldogs, who currently sit outside of the top 8. Neither team really can afford to lose here, so it's going to be a little bit of desperation footy all on the cards here. But in terms of who I think will win this, I've been liking how the Dogs have been playing. I think they're going to keep this resurgence going. They're going to make this top 8 race very competitive. I think the Dogs win this, but this will be, again, like last week, very close. Now we go into the Saturday games where at 3 PM we have the Cronulla Sharks taking on the Canberra Raiders. The last fortnight for the Cronulla Sharks has had them with a 32-16 win over the South Sydney Rabbitohs, to then following it up with a 24-16 loss to St George. Whilst it's 2 losses for Canberra, as they're coming off a 42-18 loss to the Panthers at Mudgee and a 30-24 loss to the Knights. Sharks obviously still in the top 4, looking decent, but last week's loss has kind of scared me. It's like, oh, is this where Cronulla start capitulating for no apparent reason? They're going against Canberra, who are technically still in the finals race, but essentially if they lose this, it's kind of game over. They do have a bye in hand, but yeah, the Raiders need to win this one. But try to squash any type of idea of, oh, this is going to be a trend where the Sharks just absolutely start capitulating at the final hurdle. I'm going to say I think the Sharks win this. If they don't, then there could be some problems. Now we go into 5:30 as we have the Parramatta Eels taking on the North Queensland Cowboys. The Eels' last fortnight has come off with a 16-13 win over the West Tigers in what can be described as a match that happened in the 2026 NRL season. And that's the best thing that can be said about it. And almost making one of the biggest comebacks in NRL history, just falling short against the Bunnies. Whilst the Cowboys' fortnight started off with, I don't think I can actually describe what happened because I get a content strike against the Sydney Roosters, but bounced back with a 30-8 win over the Gold Coast Titans. Parramatta being very faint of having finals hopes still involved in this. I mean, they can still make the finals, but a lot of results need to go in their favour, and they probably have to win all of their remaining matches. Whilst for the Cowboys, they need to get a win here to try to increase that gap between them being in the 8 and teams that can overtake them. They do have a bye in hand, which is going to be very crucial for them, so them getting a win here will be very fruitful for their finals chances. And I'm going to say, I think the Cowboys just keep this going. I mean, they did have a pretty considerate and substantial hiccup a fortnight ago, but I think the quicker you put that out of your head and just keep moving on, then I think we're all good. So I think the Cowboys should be able to win this. Now we go into the main game on Saturday, 7:35 p.m. It is the real Battle of Brisbane. It is the Brisbane Broncos against the New Zealand Warriors. The Brisbane Broncos, there's no polite way to say it, have capitulated. It's kind of mental. This genuinely is up there with probably one of the worst title defenses we've seen, as they're coming off in the last fortnight a 30-6 loss at home to the Knights and a 40-32 loss to the Dolphins, which is basically confirmed that the Broncos will not be in the finals this year. As for the Warriors, they're coming off a 42-6 win over the Titans and a 28-12 win over the Panthers. So basically, this could be a bit of a belt-to-backside matchup. The main motivation here for the Warriors is going to be for them to finish as high as possible to see if they can get a home final in the first week. And that would happen if the Panthers were to beat the Roosters and the Warriors were to win this game. They would jump over the Roosters to get second spot. Now, the Broncos actually, in terms of a bit of an interesting bit of fate, can actually win the wooden spoon. It is now fairly possible that it could happen. I mean, the Dragons would have to switch on immensely, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what that happens. But I'm going to say, yeah, I don't think Brisbane are winning this. I just think the Warriors are just, they're too good. They're on too good of a course. I mean, they're just barnstorm through them. Hot take, I think the Warriors are putting 50 on them. And now we go into the Sunday matches where at 2 p.m. we see the Newcastle Knights take on the Gold Coast Titans. Now the Knights, after 3 weeks of very narrow losses, they're starting to get results going. In the last fortnight, the Knights have had a 30-6 win over the Broncos and a 30-24 win over the Raiders, to basically be pretty much one step away from claiming a finals berth, which is immense after what happened last year. Which is even impressive with the last week's game, because the Knights were without Jacob Saifidi, Phoenix Crossland, and Bradman Best, alongside obviously the already seasoned injuries of Dylan Brown and Dylan Lucas. Nice one, Corey Horsburgh. Whilst the Titans coming into this game are coming off a 42-6 loss to the Warriors and a 30-8 loss to the Cowboys, both being at home. Now, I have seen Foxley kind of start jumping the gun a little bit, basically saying that, oh, the Knights, I'll punch their ticket for a finals berth. It's like, can we just wait, please? Like, can we slow down a little bit? I know we got a 4-point gap, plus we have a bye coming up, but it's just, I think we need to just keep taking games one match at a time and just say potentially, I do think the Knights win this game. Weirder things have happened, and it'll be interesting. But I think the Knights, if they just play the way they've been playing, they should be okay. And now we go into the final game of the round here as we go to 4 or 5 p.m. It is the West Tigers taking on the St George Illawarra Dragons. Now, the last 2 weeks for the Tigers have been a 13-16 loss to the Parramatta Eels and a bye. So, you know, they got 2 points. Or did they? I don't know. I think the bye might have won. Whilst the Dragons are coming off a courageous 28-22 loss to the Dolphins and a 24-16 win over Cronulla. And I honestly think the last month or so, the Dragons have actually been showing a lot of promise despite them being in the current position they are in, but they do have hope of the possibility of not getting the wooden spoon. They would just have to win most of nearly all their matches. I believe here if the Broncos and the Titans were to get a win and the Dragons do lose, then it's official that they get the wooden spoon. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. The markets actually have this game dead even, so it's going to be an interesting one to see how this plays out. But I just think Dragons have got better momentum and, you know, the wheels haven't fallen off the fucking carriage like it has with the Tigers this year. So I'm going to say that I think the Dragons win this game and just make the wooden spoon race a lot more interesting and funny. So, yeah, those are my predictions. Let me know who you guys have in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all later. If I'm going with you, I know we'll get to